Hello everyone, welcome back. If you've ever wondered what different varieties of fruit trees look like when they flower and what some of the stages look like, today's video is going to be for you. So it's going to be a little bit of a tour of the orchard and we'll talk a bit about the different trees. This is a Stanley prune, a kind of plum tree. These are the ones that get like kind of oval and blue, and then they have like a bright yellow inside. So this is the first year that's flowered for us. I'm really excited about that one. That's almost ready, almost basically done flowering at this point. It's early May as I'm making this video. This is an apple called knobbed russet, which is an English variety. As you can see in terms of the flower stage there, it's kind of like full pink to first bloom. Basically, you see one bloom and a number of pink. So one of the things that you're going to want to watch out for in your orchard is the stages your flowers are at in terms of any late frosts. Now we've been lucky actually this year. The winter was so cold, so this one here is an Orleans Renette, which is another type of apple. It's a French apple, but as you can see right there, when this focuses, that's really only a tight cluster, maybe first pink, which is a lot less susceptible to frost. But as I was mentioning a second ago, in terms of frost tolerance, the more developed your flower is, the more it is closer to being in full bloom, the more and more susceptible it is to temperatures, low temperatures in the evening. So basically everything you're seeing today, just think like 28 degrees is your critical temperature. Now something like tight cluster like I showed a minute ago, now this is a cherry Cox apple. Delicious apple. It's a Cox Orange Pippin progeny. I'm not sure what the other cross is, but beautiful apple and just in color and appearance, and a really delicious flavor. It almost does taste like cherry a little bit. But in terms of the flower stages, the more far along it is, like these here, see that there's one bloom and then five kind of closed around the king bloom. It's called that first bloom. That basically means that bloom that's open is more susceptible than the blooms around it by a few degrees, give or take. This is our sunflower pawpaw, and these are at what I call the green bell stage. I'm not sure what the technical term is, but to me they look like green bells, so I kind of like calling them that. I've found from my own experience that these are comparable to apples in terms of their frost tolerance. So you see how they turn red, like that one's on its way to being a red bell. The green bells are more frost tolerant than the red bells because they're less developed. So they'll start off like small little buds. You've seen, maybe if you've seen some of my other pawpaw videos, then they'll turn into these green kind of like pea-shaped flowers that look like a bell, and then those will get larger and turn red. And when they turn red, I would say they're comparable to an apple in full bloom. Like 28 degrees and below is going to damage them. Anything above you should be fine, at least from my experience anyway. But these are really cool pawpaws. And what's nice is it doesn't look like we, knock on wood, have any frosts in the forecast going forward, so we could get lucky this year. This is a Honeycrisp apple. This is the sum total of its flowers. This guy has taken this year off, I guess, in terms of fruit production. Last year it had a whole bunch on it. So I don't know, it's kind of strange, but these things happen. That's why, if you have a bunch of trees, any one tree isn't going to make or break you. This is where we had a large basswood, like a 70-foot tall basswood taken out last year. It was just starting to fall apart on us. It was a beautiful tree. This is some hazelnuts and some blueberries, so that you can see the blueberry flowers starting there. But that basswood tree was a beautiful tree. We loved it, and I hate cutting any tree down. As you can imagine, we kind of love trees. If you've seen our channel, you probably get that vibe, but it was just falling apart. It was a multi-trunk tree, and it was splitting, and it was a danger actually to anyone that might have been around it, but also the property next door and our property. So we had it taken down. Well, we kind of were in control of where it fell. This is an apricot. This is a Harrow Star, and that's an apricot that flowers late. Now that's almost done flowering, and if we're lucky, we might actually get an apricot or two. We'll see how that goes. Little detour to check out our onion bed. This is just a raised bed. I did the same kind of technique I showed in some of the other videos, buried a bunch of logs in there and then covered it with like maybe 7-8 inches of soil. It's a good strategy. This is our pink pearl apple, first time blossoming, so this is really exciting because pink pearl is an apple that it's one of those pink flesh, red fleshed apples. It has like a yellow outside, and when you bite into it, it's a bright pink. And I think it tastes like fruit punch. It's a really cool apple. It's been many years since we've had one. There's an orchard like an hour and a half away that unfortunately just closed, sadly, but they have a lot of these kinds of apples. And this was one, and this is one we actually saw there for the first time. So I bought a tree in 2020. And this is on MM111, so it takes a handful of years to get going, but when it does, they really start cranking, so excited about that one. This is Ashmead's kernel, also planted actually the same exact day the pink pearl was, next to each other on MM111. A couple of flowers, still hasn't, this is the first year it's had any flowers, so there's a couple on there. So when you're thinking about, you know, in terms of your plants and your orchard and kind of what you want where, one of the things to keep in mind, and this is a great example of it, this Rainier cherry. This thing has flowered like this for the last bunch of years. It's an absolutely beautiful tree, but we've eaten a sum total of 5 cherries from it. Now this year I think we might get lucky actually. Look at how beautiful that is. Because it was like this a few years in a row and the frost just zapped all the buds. Looks like this year, like I mentioned, we might be able to get away without that happening. But what I was talking about a second ago in terms of where you put things, this is actually the coldest part of the yard. It's sort of like near a creek, and it's a low spot, and you'd be surprised what a little bit of elevation even in your own yard can mean. Now this guy does not look so good. This is the Santa Rosa plum. It's been in for a few years, but it doesn't seem to be waking up, and I don't know if it made it through the winter or not. Obviously, we'll leave it, see what happens, but sort of sad there. But, you know, things like cherries that blossom early, and look how wet it is back here. They don't love that either. You want to think about, okay, what kinds of plants are less bothered by that, and, you know, rootstocks and things like that. So those are just some things to take into account. This is the green gauge plum on a full-size rootstock. I put it back here because I wanted to get some size along this back fence. This is the Jefferson plum, which is another green gauge, an early one. This one's got a bunch of flowers that are basically done, you can see, so hopefully there'll be some fruit on there. We have yet to have a green gauge, so it's only been a couple of years though since we planted those, so it's not a big deal if they don't produce this year, but it would be kind of cool. This gives you a sense, and this is another thing, you know, that's our redwood tree that we planted this year, a dawn redwood. We'll do some videos on that. That's a really cool deciduous conifer, just waking up. We just planted that about a month ago, so we got a big one to start with, which was kind of cool. But the forgotten forget-me-nots. We love forget-me-nots. Some people consider them a weed. But, you know, what's a weed and what isn't is pretty much just a matter of perception if you think about it. We really like them. They're pretty. They're a great border. But in terms of what I was talking about with what you plant and when, you know, and kind of thinking about that, look at this pawpaw. It's barely awake, but you see these little signs here, those little green tips. Pawpaws are among the easy... I got the pattern from the umbrella on my hand there. Pawpaws are among the easiest trees to grow, I think, for fruit, especially in New York State where we are. One of the reasons is they wake up so late. I mean, here it is early May. You can see the other trees are leafed out, but the pawpaws are walking through a swamp back here. It has just rained non-stop basically lately. But the pawpaws don't wake up until mid-May. I mean, you can see them starting. The flowers are getting going and things like that, but they're a later fruit in general, and these green buds will probably take 26 degrees if it got down to that, and I would say probably like at least half of them would survive that, so kind of like a tight cluster apple. But because they wake up so late, they tend to sort of avoid a lot of those late freezes, which is really cool. They don't need any pesticides or anything because they're a native crop, so pawpaws are a fantastic thing to grow. You just put them in the ground and leave them there. I mean, people think it must take a lot of work. Like, wow, that must take a lot of time. But to be honest with you, I just look at them. I don't really do anything to them except pick the fruit when it's ready and pollinate them. You know, we'll do a video on pollinating them in a few weeks, but I do pollinate them by hand to try to increase fruit yield, but you don't really have to do anything. Just enjoy them. And that goes with most of these other trees too. This is the Asian pear, which is an absolutely beautiful tree, and I purposely let this get big. You know, one of the things you might want to think about in your landscape is letting a handful of your fruit trees get really big, especially if you're looking for privacy or light block or something like that, because they can do double duty. I mean, look at this tree. It's loaded with flowers from top to bottom, so that, as we scroll up, is proof positive that you do not have to prune your trees for them to fruit. I mean, look at all of those flowers. I've never pruned this tree really, other than a couple branches that were kind of sticking out where I didn't want them in the way of the lawnmower, but I certainly didn't prune it for shape or anything. This is a view of the flowers a couple days prior. Just really beautiful pear flowers. This is called Peggy, this Asian pear. Just a fantastic variety, and we'll probably get 2 bushels of Asian pears off of this year. Just pretty awesome, but you don't have to, again, proof you do not have to prune your fruit trees in order to get fruit. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't. There are reasons that you should, probably, but it's not something that should stop you from planting them. That's the big thing. You know, I would hate for people to not plant a fruit tree because they think they're too much work. You can prune them. I have some really cool ones that I kind of like the shape I've pruned them in, but these pears I've just sort of let do their own thing for the most part. This is an Anjou pear, which I actually moved here from where the Stanley plum was at the very beginning of the video. That's where this was, and it was quite a bit bigger than this. I moved it, pruned it way back about a year and a half ago, and this is the first year it's flowered. It also has one of my pear grafts, a Stacyville pear, which I've never heard of prior to getting the scions, but apparently they're a round pear and they're kind of rare, so it just struck my curiosity. I thought that might be kind of fun. But yeah, so don't, you know, when you're thinking about orchards and everything, and a lot of people think that's so much work, all those fruit trees. I barely spend any time actually working, quote unquote, on the fruit trees. I do a little bit of pruning on some of them here and there, but I mean, that takes such a small amount of time. That's a donut peach we just passed. Just planted it last year, so not much happened in there yet. This is Pitmaston pineapple, just starting. This is another really late flowering variety. So if you're in a place where you have a lot of problems with late frost, you saw like 2 flowers on that one. And then over here, straight ahead, is the Calvel Blanc, which is in full bloom. So if you're in a place where you have a lot of problems with late frost, something like Pitmaston pineapple is a great variety to grow because it's just waking up and starting now, whereas this Calvel Blanc is loaded head to toe with flowers. This is also, by the way, one of my favorite pruning jobs. This one I have pruned pretty extensively to get a nice shape on it. This is Geneva 935 rootstock also, which makes a difference. You know, the rootstock, the cultivar, just the quirks of that particular tree, because each tree has its own sort of personality, if you will, and then how you prune it, all those things go in, and your climate and everything else, and just plain luck. You know, sometimes trees grow a weird way or something happens to them early in their development, but this is one of my favorite shaped trees that I have. Really, really nice. Very productive. I think we get like 2 bushels of those apples every year. Also, Calvel Blanc seems to be a couple degrees more frost tolerant, because when we've had late frosts in the past, we still have this tree loaded with apples regardless, even though it should have killed 90+% of buds. It doesn't seem to on this one. Like if you get 24, 23 degrees when they're in full bloom, we still seem to get a full crop. That happened a couple years ago, so not on some of the other apples, but on Calvel Blanc it did. Here's our frost peach. Now, yet another example. Look at this. These are just starting. You can kind of see the little pink flowers starting there. They're not in full bloom yet, and it's May. I'm filming this on May 3rd, and so it's still a few days away from being in full bloom. What's great about that is it tends to miss out on all the late frost. So again, when you think of cultivar frost peach, it's called frost peach. there's a flower that is in full bloom. But it's called frost peach because it, ironically, avoids the frost for the most part. So it's a great variety to grow in the north because it just flowers so late. And it is self-fertile also. That's our multi-graft tree. We're going to do another video on that because there's a bunch of different cultivars flowering on that multi-graft tree. This is Kid's Orange Red on Geneva 11. This is what I meant a minute ago when I said each tree has its own personality. This has always had kind of a weeping character to it for whatever reason. We ordered it. It was on Geneva 11 rootstock already grafted. It's a beautiful little tree, but it's probably 6 feet tall, and I have literally never pruned this tree at all. Not once, other than to cut dead branches off. So this is just the way this tree grew. It topped out around 5.5, 6 feet tall, and it's like a little weeping bush almost, if you will. Some of that's rootstock, but I think some of that may be the particular scion. You know, there's scions if they're from like certain parts of a tree that can make like a weeping aspect. Really pretty. See, now this is also a Geneva 11, so it gives you an idea. It's not just the rootstock. This is Golden Russet. Now, this cage I built around it, I was determined this year because Golden Russet's my favorite apple. And every year, this one is very susceptible to the spring frost. I think part of it's that it's against this fence, so it's a little bit warmer and therefore wakes up a little sooner because this is in the south-facing yard also. But every year it flowers very early and then gets sapped. That didn't happen this year, knock on wood. But I also built this cage around it because if it is going to frost, I have a giant tarp that I can attach to the fence and throw up and over and make like basically a greenhouse for this thing. So that's what the wood is. It's temporary just until frost season is over, like hopefully soon. But I'll probably take it down like June 1st or something like that just to be safe. I really want those Golden Russets. They're such good apples. Last year we got a few. The year before I got none because of the late frost. The year before that we had probably 50 apples on there. Big, huge apples. And the squirrels destroyed them all. So it's just been a tough one with that. Let's take a look out front. We don't usually go into the front yard in videos, but there's something really cool out here to show. And that is the Japanese flowering quince. This is a really cool bush. Now, this is one of the few things, actually, in our videos that was here when we got here. We planted almost everything else, but this bush is just beautiful, and it's gotten huge over the last 8 years that we've been here. Now, Japanese quince do get fruit on them, so these will fruit, but the fruit is so sour and bitter that it's technically edible, but you have to put so much sugar with it that it's just practically not. The flavor is really good. If you bite into one, it's got this really good flavor, but they're very, very sour. They're not like a European quince, like a quince tree. So we have like the Vandeman quince that we showed last year. That's a whole different story than these, but it's a beautiful landscape bush, and that's really the key. I mean, that's why it's there. But the animals enjoy the fruit that it makes, which is kind of weird, and I don't know why, but hey, if it keeps them away from our apples. This is Northern Spy, so take a look at this. We're still like full pink in terms of a stage, and tight cluster, maybe first pink, somewhere in there, depending on, of course, the tree isn't all going to be exactly the same stage. See, here's a flower, here's some tight cluster. But Northern Spy is one that, and this is on Geneva 41 rootstock. This is a great tree to grow. I love Northern Spy. It's actually the tree that started my apple obsession way back when, was Northern Spy apples. But they bloom really late. I mean, they're probably the latest apple we have. That won't be in full bloom until mid-May. And so as a result, almost always escapes any late frost. So it's just, and it's a delicious apple. Very, very large, bright red, good eating apple, good cider apple. So Northern Spy is one to definitely include, I think. And also a very reliable cropping apple. Let's take a walk through the front and we'll look at the fruit tree that we have over by the driveway, which is a Montmorency cherry. We'll go around and take a look here. It's in pretty much full bloom. We had a lot of wind on Friday, so it kind of knocked a lot of blossoms off. And Thursday, we've had a lot of windy weather. But this is a sour cherry. Really pretty bright red cherry. We've had a handful of these. We have not had great luck with cherries, but maybe this is the year. They're at least pretty, if nothing else. On the way back, I thought I'd show this grape hyacinth planting around our maple tree in the front yard. Beautiful flowers. And in their front yard, deer don't seem to mess with them because this is the part of the yard the deer have access to. They don't go into the fenced-in area. They could jump that 6-foot fence, no problem, but they never have in 3+ years, so knock on wood there. So we're in that part of the garden called the Star Garden now, and I wanted to sort of wrap up with some thoughts on, when you're planting your apples. This is a Court Penju plat that I'm going to show here with the rhubarb around it. It flowers late, as you can see, so it's another one that kind of lags behind, but not the most reliable cropper. Same with the Pitmaster pineapple, not the most reliable. So, if you're only going to grow a couple of apples, let's say, I would stick with, if you really want apples, and the ones that I've found to be the most reliable, Northern Spy, Colville Blanc, and Kids Orange Red. Those three always produce apples, no matter what the weather does, no matter what crazy freezes happen. That we've had that May 19th, 22-degree night a few years ago, and all three of those had apples. So those are really reliable croppers. And so this is just to show how you can incorporate your trees just right into your garden beds too. Most of ours are freestanding, like orchard style. But you can also incorporate your trees right into your garden beds and have things around them too. So there's a lot of ways to do it. The key thing is just make sure you plant some fruit trees so that you can enjoy all the bounty and harvest and everything that comes with that, and the beautiful peace in the spring. So thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.